Okay, I think we're ready to start recording here. Shut this down, load this up, turn off the music here, look at what we're going to do today. Okay, it's Sunday the 29th, and this is the third lecture. We're doing substituting for going to real class in 3371. We're working on 2 exam topics. I'm trying to get these 2 exam topics out of the way so we get the content material for the final done. So we did 2 videos on XML. I'm going to start the videos tonight on CSS. Don't know how long this is going to take. It's a lot of material, but we're just going to give it a try. So you've already got 2 XML in the can. First CSS tonight. This is all on the syllabus. This should not be any problem with us at all. Let's go up here and check out and see where we are on the syllabus. This is we're down here on April 1st, which is, we're skipping this time. I'm going to put these lectures, this would be my content material for tonight. I'll put the video of this right here. This is CSS. This is the second piece of exam material. I'm going to come back, and this is a homework assignment. We'll look at that in a different way. This is non-exam material. So this is the exam material right here. We're going to put this video, and that's where we are. So that's what we're going to start off here with today, is these 3 models. You don't really know. We've sort of alluded to the fact that there are 3 object models in JavaScript. And the first exam, we spent a lot on this HTML object model. Now, in all the object models, there's 3 of them. There's HTML, there's XML, and there's the document object model. We're trying to accomplish the same thing. We're trying to communicate between the script up here in our HTML and what's on the page, what's in the body of the HTML document. And we're going to do 2 things. We're going to let the script set values on the page, in other words, change values of the page while the script is executing, or get values off the page and bring them up into the script. So it's get and set. So for every one of these ways to get a handle on how to get to this data down here on the page, we normally are getting or normally are setting, and this is what we did before. So let's look at, there's 4 variations to this, because there's 4 variations of the way to go down and get something out of an HTML form. So this is our original version where we've got forms and we've got elements. And the normal way is we just say, give me the form name and the element name. And we reach down on the page and get that and bring it up into the script and assign it to a variable, get. Or we take a value and we want to put or set that value down on the page in form whose name is form1 and whose element whose name is student ID. I want to put this value. So I go get the student's ID's value or set the student's ID's value. Now that's using names. Both of these cases I use the form name and the student ID element name, student ID. There's another way to do it. We can do it by numbers. So if we go look at this one, this is the first form. In other words, if we don't know the form name, we can always get them by their number. If there's only one form, that's forms 0. And we're using the student name version. Then we have the version where we go get the student element number. So this is elements 14. This would be the 15th element in form 1. Or we get them both by number. Forms 0, elements 14. So notice in this case, both of these things, it's forms plural, even though it's a single number in here, and elements plural, even though that's a single integer number. Okay, it doesn't matter. You get or set the same thing. You got to get it all. It has to be in a form. It's everything we did on the first exam. We in particular, we did a get where we got the data out of a text box and sucked it up into the script. We did that every time. Okay, and the last time, in the second lecture, we looked at this XML structure for getting and setting things. And we had roots, child nodes, And we had these two variations of how to get the values. One was the Microsoft version where it's .text, and one's the non-Microsoft versions where it's childnode0.node value. And then we've got what are the nodes. There's some number like student number, and then the second node under the student would be this node value right here. Okay, and then so we looked at that in the second lecture on how to write code for this and what it takes to write code when we're going to go get things out of XML. Okay, so tonight we're going to worry about this one. This is the document object model, which may be the grander of all of them. And you've seen this before. You saw it in assignment number 1. When you put your answers on assignment number 1, you did something called answer1.innerHTML or answer2.innerHTML. And it was a set. In other words, this was where you put, we had one called, I think, ans1.innerHTML, and that's where you would put your answer set. Or sometimes you might want to go down and get something off the page. And we're doing it by ID. The ID in quotes like that. Now there's two variations. One, you just put the ID in front of innerHTML, and the other more structured version is you get element by ID, quote, name of the ID .innerHTML or .whatever. So this is the more formal way of doing it. This is the way we did it, 25 times in the first assignment. Okay, but this is something we've already seen. What we want to do tonight is talk about CSS. This is the last one. This is a CSS property. And it's also get and set. And this allows us to change the presentation of things on the page from JavaScript. And normally what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about style. And so this is the ID of the element, .style. And then this is the style property. There's a lot of style properties. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the idea tonight is we're going to work on style property like this, or we're going to work on style property like this. Get element by ID, name the ID string, .style.color, like that one. So we can get it, store it in memory, or we can take a value and set that value on an element on the page that has an ID. Okay, so notice this is our last point. We did this on the first exam. We're going to do this. Half of the exam is going to be about this root.childnode stuff, and half of it's going to be down here about these CSS properties. Okay, so let's go look at some CSS. We'll come over here. I'm going to change to JavaScript for a while, and this is a CSS page. This is on our syllabus. We can go look at our syllabus right here. Here's the syllabus. This is the CSS page right here. Now I'm going to look at this, and I'm changing the browser. I'm going to look at this in Chrome, just because there's some things I want to do in Chrome down at the bottom, and I want to go moving back and forth. Okay, so the first thing, notice this thing is 21 years old now. It's been around for a while. It's still a relatively early incarnation. This is what we're looking at we'll talk about here. This is CSS 3. CSS 1 came out in '94. This is Hakam Lai and Bert Boss's Babe, 1994. Version 2 came out in '98, and 2.1 in 2009. And there's not really been finished with number 3. So rather than making a whole release version, they decided what they would do for the third version was to hand it out in pieces as the pieces got done. So they started doing this 18 years ago, and they're not finished yet. So there have been a lot of things that have been dribbled out about version 3 of CSS. So, but that's all right. We won't get too particularly worried about that. But you want to remember these names, Line and Boss. This is the guys that did this. So beginning back in '94. Okay, so this is sort of the idea. What we're going to do is we're going to take all of the attributes that we saw in HTML version 4, and we had a lot of tags where you could give it additional information, like the table tag. You could say how many rows and how many columns. You could say text align. So even though we had these tags, we had these attribute qualifiers, and they were different for all the tags. So after a while, after we started adding all of these attributes to the tags, it got pretty cumbersome because you had to remember all these attribute names and the values and things like that. So finally, Bert Boss and all these guys decided, look, we need to get a consistent way that we can control all of these parameters. And that's what cascading style sheets actually is. It's a way to try to control all of the different properties of the HTML elements in a more unified fashion. And clearly we've tried 3 times and haven't finished yet, so this is just the beginning. Okay, so the idea is we're going to look at 3 ways to do that. And we're going to try to explain, what I'm focusing on here at the moment, is the cascading style sheets. There's 3 ways to do it. And it's what's going to create the cascade. And this is just like, I'm going to think waterfall here. All right, so what I'm going to show you here, this is a heading. This is a heading, and this is where you put the middle of the 3 potential locations for your CSS. This is called page style. It's in the heading of the HTML page. And what we're going to do is we're going to, any element, read that, tag, any tag like a paragraph tag or a table tag or a div block, and we want to change one of its presentation properties. We can do it here. So we have these property names. These are CSS property names. And then we have the kind of tag. And this is all called style. Now, this is sitting up at the top of the page. Now, I can also have link style. I can put all my style commands in a file that's somewhere else. There's some significant advantages to that. And then there's local style. This is in the body of the HTML document. This is like actually in the tag where you want to make the change, we put this style attribute. Notice we only say the word style once, and then we're going to have a list of attributes for this particular tag. Okay, so we got basically 3 places to put it. So let's come over and look at this. We've got in the heading, we've got a link to a CSS style sheet that's out here in the world somewhere, and it has a file extension called .css. Now the one I've shown you here, it has to be, this one is local, because it has to be in the same subdirectory as this HTML file. Now, you can also put a URL in front of this, and this thing can be, anywhere in the world, and you're going to drag this file in. This is external, full URL capability. Boom. Inserts it right here, just like you had written it and stored it in here yourself. Now, this is the one that's really sort of important, because anything that happens up here happens when I make this link. Now, these styles apply to everything in the body of my HTML page. Okay, so then here's the style command like we just saw. This is page style. This applies to, this is style that we're going to set up for this page. And then here's our local style. Here's a div block, and here's my style command for the div block. All right, so let's sort of summarize. We've got local style inside the tag itself. Then I've got page style that's in the style sheet sitting in the heading. That's going to be this one. And then I've got external or remote or linked style where I've got a file of CSS somewhere else in the world that I'm going to drag into my HTML page. Okay, so this is where the cascade comes in. So from the outside world into the page style, from the page style onto the page, last destination is inside the tag itself, the local style. Okay, so what I've set up is I'm going to talk about this file of CSS out here, and here are some attributes and values for a div block. Here's some style inside my heading. and its style, which has this class name. In other words, the class name lets me change all of the tags with this class name. So what I'm going to do down here in the second div block, you'll notice I'll say class name. So that's equivalent to me writing all this down and inserting it here so it would look just like this one. But I can use this over and over again in the page, right? The same piece of style properties. Okay, so I got this one, and I got this one, and I got this one. So literally make the cascade. It goes boom, boom, boom down to the bottom. Okay, so this is what it looks like rendered on the page. Let's start at the bottom, local style. Okay, notice I've got a div block, and here's the ending div block. So here's the contents of my div block. This is what you actually see. This is div 3, break tag, local style. Okay, now let's go look at the local style. Okay, so the color, that's a text color. That's this blue right here. Background color, that's this light blue. Then I got a border, got a really wide border. Got an 8-pixel border here, solid. This is sort of, reasonably dark blue. And I had to mess with this so you can clearly distinguish between the 3 levels of border. A light background, a little brighter text, and a really dark border. So that's what I'm trying to do on all 3 pages, right? Okay, so but this is local. This is local style. It's in the tag, just like that. Okay, now if we back up and look at this one, this is div number 2 here, and it all appears to be green. That's because there's a class definition here, and the class is, this is a green class. This is a green class, and so here's the definition. Notice this is the same 3 properties. It's the border, background, and color. So here, up here, because this is the second div block has a class of GRN class, its border is going to be dark green. That's that dark green right there. Also 8 pixels wide, like that one. Background color is light green, and the color of the text is green. So all this comes from the page style up in the heading. Now, notice all the div blocks are 185 wide and have font size 30 and are bold-faced. So we aren't making these specifications. So that applies to all div blocks on the page. This applies to the ones that have div blocks that have class, green class. And these are the remote ones, the ones sitting out in the world somewhere that I went and got, which specified this one, which was red. And there's my border. It's dark red right here. Again, it's 8 pixels. Background color is red. And I made this text color lighter, just slightly different. Okay, but you can see the 3 different styles. Boom, boom, cascade, boom, boom, down. And I get 3 variations of the same way. Okay, now, the thing that's really great about this is this is okay. It can do it this way. We come down here. We normally are going to use local style when we're going to do something once. We don't want to have it up here. So, and normally we put things up in the style sheet, up at the heading, in the heading, when we want to do a lot of things. And this is the big one, when we put them out in the world. So if you go to any reasonably large website like U of H, and we can go open it up and do a view source on any of the U of H webpage, you'll see that there's a huge number of these linked style sheets for University of Houston. Now, what this allows me to do is this allows the university to set a set of styles. And if you'll notice, as you cross pages across the university, the pages are laid out the same. They got the same colors. They got the same font. That's all being done by, let's go out and look at it this way. Let's go ahead and look at this one. Let's go to www.uh. Let's go to power.uh.edu, and we'll load up the page. This is going to take a second, I'm sure. Here we go. And I'm going to do a view source here. And here is the source code for the university's page. So here's my heading, beginning of my heading. And down here, we get a little bit later, we'll get to, here's the body tag down here. So this is my heading. This is scripts we want to run. And you'll notice in here, here's some JavaScript. Here's my style sheets. Okay, so they've got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 4 different style sheets that they use. And it's called a style sheet. And here's the subdirectory. It's called CSS. And here's the name of the style sheet and what version it is. So university uses this pretty extensively. And what this does at the university, it gives us a consistent viewpoint of how the pages should look. And that's really the importance of it, is we share these styles and colors and ways of laying things out so that the pages look the same. That's probably the most important. There's a certain amount of consistency with this. Now, it doesn't always ring true. Sometimes the down levels maintain the same style, and then sometimes they don't. Okay, so if we go out to MIT and we just pick one of these headings out here, and you'll notice the layout. We got the MIT logo over here, and we got a big heavy-duty picture here. We got this pretty big page. Okay, let's see what happens if we drop down a level. Let's go to Campus Life. Okay, so notice we got same heading. Font seems to be changing. We go back. Let's go Campus Life. We don't get home over here. So Campus Life. And we don't get to do much on Campus Life. Let's try Education. Don't get to do much on Education. Where's my down menus at? They're not doing it that way. They're going to keep the same headers up here the whole time. Yeah, all the headers stay the same no matter what we're doing across the top. But you'll notice across all these pages, well, they all look like they're laid out, sort of the same. Ooh, that was awful. Well, that one was dreadful. We suddenly really changed layout, right? Sort of surprisingly, we were doing good here. So the first down level, everything's doing good. Now let's make a change here. Let's go look at U of H and see how U of H is doing as we sort of go down the pages here. Okay, so, wow, this is big. I probably got my browser set a little bit big. Let's set the browser down a little bit. So if we go to academics, hello, that looks the same. Now we got another level down here. Looks like we can go to current students. And we sort of lost it. We lost our connection here, but it's okay. We do it back here. It's okay. So let's go down at the bottom and look at the bottom. The footers should be the same. This is all the phone numbers and legal notices at the bottom of the page. We're going to academics. Let's see what happens at the bottom of the page. Yeah, the bottom of the page is working good. So there's a lot of CSS. I mean, there certainly is a highly used web technology. And it's very powerful. But the most powerful thing about it is having CSS file that a large group of people can agree upon and share. If this is just my home page, nobody can see this but me. If I can put a file out there in the earth somewhere, and everybody at the university can get to that same style sheet, it's going to help the consistency of all the websites. And that's the idea. That's the idea completely. Okay, so let's go look. Let's get started. Quit fooling around here. This is CSS 3. This is over on the syllabus. This is right here. It's Wednesday, April 1st, CSS reference. But again, I'm going to leave the syllabus here and come over and I'm going to look at it in JavaScript. Okay, page has been here for 20 years. So I'm, a while behind before I did this. If you print this page, it's 45 pages long. I got 86 CSS properties to cover. So, hold your breath when you go through looking at this page. This is a reasonably large page. It's got a lot of content. And a lot of the stuff doesn't do you a lot of good to print it out, but that's okay. All right, so here we are again with back to Lion Bert and who did what. Now we come back down and look at this. This makes a little more sense now. We've got these. This is our heading style, page style, applies to everything on the page. There's our external style format. And here's local style. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to do a couple of things about classes. Okay, classes, just what classes do, they just let me to make a name that allows me to have several different tags having the same kinds of properties. So I might have different variations of paragraph tags. I might have a paragraph tag that is predominantly red color. I might have a blue paragraph or a white paragraph. In other words, if I say things up normally in these cases, what will happen is when you define the style on the page, that's for all occurrences of that tag on the page. So typically, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to class this out. In other words, we're going to have probably different types of paragraphs. So we need a class name like this. Now, with the class name, what I have to do on the tag, it's a paragraph tag, so I'm going to say class is equal to this. Okay, now this is sitting up in the style tag of the page. Could be sitting off on the external remote style sheet file. But this is certainly page style. Okay, so notice the red one. And here's what the red one looks like. And I'm probably going to have a whole list of other tags, different kinds of paragraph names with different class names. One of the things that happens in these things, these are called pseudo-classes. These are how we color the links. So this is something that most everybody likes to do, is like to change the color of the links. And we saw this originally when we started talking about color. We had a link, the link that the color changes when you click it. V-link, the color it changes to after you visited the link. We looked at that before, and this just lets us do it in CSS. So it's called link visited active and hover. So I can change and this one was not available in HTML4. I couldn't hover over it and change the color. So this is the color of a link that I haven't visited, the color of a link that I have visited, the color of a link. It changes when I click it. And again, this is not very useful because most web pages load so fast these days that we don't really notice very much about it. And then what color if we want to hover over it. Okay, so it can be done equally as well except for the hover part. Okay, so here's the nav for the page. This is how we're going to navigate. These are the 80-something, 85 different attributes that we're going to have to go over. In other words, that's what makes this page long, are these 80-something. How many is it? 86. 86 different CSS properties. Now there's this little nav thing up here. This is the box model. I'll get to that in a second. And these are all your font tags and your color tags, then your list tags and your positioning tags and animations and 2D transforms, 3D transforms. So this is sort of topically organized. But the tags themselves, what I did on this page is it's all going to be alphabetical order. So this is links by sort of subject matter. But the actual tags, we go down here, they're in alphabetical order. All right, so these are links. Come up here. CSS properties. These are all about the box model. That's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, the box model. Okay, so here's the box model. Most everything on the HTML page is a box. And as a result of everything on the page being a box, there are a couple of things we need to know about how to change the size of all the things. So first of all is the box that contains the content. That can be a paragraph tag, that can be a div block, that can be a lot of different things. And then around it, we have a border. That's not very mysterious. And the border has a color normally, and it has a width, and we'll discover it has a style. And then we have what's called padding. Padding is reasonably important. It's blank space between the content and the border. If you let the contents run right up against the border, it makes it very difficult to read, especially if the border's dark and the font's dark. So normally, you normally default, you have at least 1 or 2 pixels of padding around the content so the content characters or image or whatever it is doesn't touch the border. Then there's the border itself. And then there's the margins. And the margins are the space between this HTML element's border and the next one. And everything's a box. So the whole web page is just a whole bunch of boxes. And we can set margins to 0, which will squeeze everything together, or we can have reasonably large margins. We can have big borders, little borders, a lot of padding, a little padding. Content, it's a rectangular shape of some sort. So these 3 properties right here, margin, border, and padding, apply to all HTML boxes, anything that can be an HTML box. Okay, so here's a little example. Here's something. I've got a 10 pixel gray margin, and I just put a box around it. So nothing can get closer to this than that blue line right there. All right, so I got a gray margin, then I got a 10 pixel blue border, I got 10 pixels of padding, and then I got some text with a red background. Box model. Margin, border, padding. Okay. Hold your shorts. Here we go. Now, we're not going to finish this. I'm going to quit here, reasonably shortly. We can't possibly make it through this list in one lecture, and, we're probably sort of pushing the limits right here, but we'll see if we can cover the box model, if nothing else. Okay, margins. You got 4 margins, so we potentially have to have 4 values because we can have different size margins. Okay, so composite property. All right, we can specify the details about any of the 4 margins. So if we give margin a single number, we say margin : 5 pixels. Here's one. Margin 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, so this red box right here, this is the table, here's my red div block right here. This thing has a margin of 5 pixels at the top, 10 pixels on the right-hand side, 15 pixels on the bottom, 20 pixels on the left. Okay, so when you assign margins distances, it's top, right, bottom, and left. 4 of them. Okay, but if you want the same margin, you only have to say it once. So if you only say margin 5px, so that means what you mean there is you want 5 pixel margins all 4 sides. Now, if you give me 2 values, okay, so if you give me 2 values, the first value applies to the top and the bottom. The second applies to the left and the right. Okay, so that's if you got 2. If you got 3, first one applies to the top, second to the right, third to the bottom, right is copied from the left. Okay, let me do that again. So if you give me 3, the first one's the top, second one's the right, third one's the bottom. The left is copied from the right. And if you give me 4, then it's top, right, bottom, left. Like that. Okay, so you can do it anyway. 1 number, 2 numbers, 3 numbers, or 4 numbers. And normally, we're going to say pixels. That's just the way we've always done it. There's a lot of other, we can say this is percentages and things like that. But for these little low-level details, that's good enough. Okay, now if you just want to do the top, you can say margin hyphen top, like this, and just talk about the big tall margin on that red box on the top. And don't worry about the rest of it. Or you can say margin right, give it a big 20 pixel margin on the right. Margin bottom, 20 pixels on the bottom. Margin left, 20 pixels on the left. Okay, so we got 4 more. If you just give me one value, I've got applies to all sides. Margin with 2 values is top and bottom, and then left and right. And 3 values is top, right, bottom. Left is copied from the right. And 4 values are top, left, bottom, and right. Specifying 1, 2, 3, or 4 values for the margin. Or I can just top, just do the right, just do the bottom, or just do the left. Whew. Margin. Okay, padding. This is the space between the border and the content. This looks familiar. Composite property. Padding details. Okay, look at this one. This is the sample, right? I got 4 values again. Padding. Padding on the top, padding on the right, padding on the bottom, padding on the left. Same sequence. If I say padding, I can give it any one of 4 values. If I give it 1 value, it's got the same padding all the way around. If I give it 2 values, top and bottom have the same padding, left and right have the same padding. If I give it 3 values, it's top, then right, then bottom. Left is copied from the right if you give me 3. 4 values get potentially a different value of padding all the way around. So this one, 0, 6, 12, and 18 padding. Padding is the distance between the text, the content, and the border. Now, you notice, then, strangely enough, we're also going to have 5 singletons. If you don't want to do all of them, you can just do the top, padding right, padding bottom, padding left. Just like the margins. Okay, we did add one thing here. We can talk about this. This is pixels is the normal way we can do this. M's. Okay, this is a printer's section. M's means the width of a capital M, hence the name M. That's capital M is in most fonts the widest letter. So that's a different way than expressing it in terms of pixel counts. It's the size of a capital M, the width of a capital M. Okay, so notice that when we went through padding also, we had, back up here, we had padding, and then we had the 4 values, and then we had padding top, padding right, padding bottom, padding left. All right. Border. Oh man, borders gets complicated. Border's more complicated than the others. Okay, so border is normally going to have 3 values. You're going to have how wide the border is, the border type, and then the border color. So this border is 3 pixels wide. It's dashes, and this is sort of a dull red. Okay, so we can see a couple of things here. Border styles is probably the most weird one. Solid is the most popular, obviously. You can have dots or dashes. Hidden borders, okay, you can hide them, I guess. No borders. Double lines, grooves, inset or outset. We'll look at some of these as we go down the page. We got a lot of these to cover here. So border is a composite probably. You got to give it a width, a border style, and a border color. And we'll go on from there. Okay, so if all we need to be concerned about is width, this number right here, now we've got 4 possible values of width. Now we're sort of back to the same idea. We got width at the top, right, bottom, and left. Same rules. If it's just 1, it applies to all sides. If it's just 2, it applies to top and bottom, and then left and right. If there's 3, it's top, right, bottom, left is copied from the right, or I got all 4. Border width. border top width, right width, bottom width, left width. Border color, got 4 values potentially, like this one. Sort of looks like the Google logo. If 1, it goes all the way around. 2, top and bottom, left and right. 3, top, right, bottom, left is copied from the right, or in this case, it's all 4. Border colors, red, green, blue, and yellow. Or we just want to do the top color, right color, bottom color, left color. Okay, here's styles. None, dot, dash, solid, groove, double, ridge, inset, outset. Whew. Okay, and I've got 4 sides. Does the border apply? If I've got 1 value, it's all sides. 2, top and bottom, left and right. 3, top, right, bottom, left is copied from the right, or all 4. Well, so there you are. You can, same thing. Top style, dot, dash, solid, groove, up. Okay, I can do that. I can change the border on the top, border on the right, border on the bottom, border on the left. I was doing good with the box model. And then they came along. We're going to sort of stop after this one. Radiuses, making the corners of the boxes round. Wow. Okay. So it's called border radius. Now, this one doesn't look too bad because it's only 1 number, so all the border radiuses, these are little quarter circles. Now, if I do it differently, this is 9 and 4. Right? So this is really crazy. I got 2 different radiuses, and then I got 3 radiuses, and then I've got 4 different radiuses. It doesn't look very nice. This is about as all I'm willing to do is to have rounded corners, but I want all the 4 corners to have the same amount of roundness. I know I'm being peculiar about that. Okay, and then you can do it with elliptical corners, which I think is even more ugly. I will leave this to you to go read about these, but okay. And we're going to stop right there with border images. This is we've done a pretty good job. We're probably, maybe 2/3 of the way through. So we'll pick up border images tomorrow night. And all we're going to do is we're just going to keep, our second version. This is we're going to go down and we're going to look at some esoteric, very, very esoteric things. We're going to do some bezel curves and things like that. We had a lot of stuff to cover. So we'll come down and we'll leave it that we're going to pick this up on border image on the next lecture. Okay. We'll shut all this down. And we'll say goodnight. Stop.